He was at the center of a scandal, the national pastime, gambling, and gangsters.
Arnold Rothstein gave them a little bit of money to supposedly throw the series.
Shoeless Joe was arguably the best baseball player of all time.
He's banned from the game.
One weeping fan of his cried out, "Say it isn't so."
And the fascination with his tale endures.
Shoeless Joes are really part of pop culture.
So why is his autograph one of the rarest in sports?
He was virtually illiterate.
He had a very hard time even writing an individual letter.
He did. As far as we know it, there is only one known.
One?
Just one.
And it's this woman's strange inheritance.
It started to dawn on me that this is a lot of money we're talking about.
This is a biggie. 1911 Shoeless Joe Jackson signed photograph.
Hi, I'm Jamie Colby, and I'm heading along the shores of Lake Erie in Cleveland, Ohio. Today, I'm meeting a woman who inherited a rare item that recalls the most notorious episode in baseball history, an episode that's inspired books and movies and retains an air of mystery to this day.
My name is Sharon Bowen. After my husband Bill passed away, I started to receive lots of phone calls about a scrapbook that he had kept in a trunk in our bedroom. I knew very little about Shoeless Joe Jackson, but now I do.
Bill and Sharon Bowen raised 2 children in a Cleveland suburb.
How long were you married?
We were married 39 years.
Bill, a professional fundraiser, works for local universities and the Salvation Army. He's a native Clevelander and a baseball nut.
This is Bill, probably around 5 or 6. Bill started collecting at a very early age.
And never stops. Card collecting becomes a family affair.
Did you do any collecting with him?
That was my thing with him and with his father. Every Saturday, going to baseball card shows, just sitting around the kitchen table and looking at all the cards.
Through work, Bill becomes friends with a retired professor who shares his passion for collecting.
And one day, the gentleman's wife said to him, "I have a book I bet you would love to see."
Boy, does he. This simple paper scrapbook holds a treasure trove of photographs from the 1911 spring training camp of the Cleveland Naps, now called the Indians.
She inherited this book from her father, and her father received it as a gift from his friend, Frank Smith.
Frank Smith was a photographer for the Cleveland Plain Dealer. That spring, he takes action shots of established stars like Nap LaJoie, Christy Mathewson, and a Cleveland rookie named Joseph Jefferson Jackson.
Hi, Joe.
Good to see you.
So great to see you.
To learn more about that rookie, I pay a visit to baseball memorabilia maven, Joe Orlando.
When the names of greats come up, is Shoeless Joe still in that category?
Babe Ruth, who most people consider to be the greatest player who ever lived, patterned his own swing after Joe Jackson's. If that doesn't tell you what type of a hitter Joe Jackson was, I don't know what will.
Joe Jackson is born in Pickens County, South Carolina in 1887.
What kind of family did he come from?
Well, he came from humble beginnings. He worked at a textile mill as a teenager as a mill hand, and he was virtually illiterate for the remainder of his life.
But on the diamond, he's a true phenom. At the age of 13, he stars on the Cotton Mills team and picks up a lifelong nickname.
Legend has it that while he was a teenager playing in a mill game, his cleats were bothering him so much, he took his cleats off and played the rest of the game without shoes, and one of the fans started to heckle him and call him a shoeless son of a gun.
Shoeless Joe's career takes off like a blue streak line drive. In 1908, he bats .346 for a minor league team in Greenville. In 1911, he's ready to move up.
It was his first full season in the majors with the Cleveland Naps.
And photog Frank Smith documents his arrival in the bigs.
He batted .408, which still stands as a record for a rookie.
He may be a whiz on the field, but traveling with his teammates, Joe can't even read a menu.
They were in a restaurant, He'd listen to what everyone else ordered and simply base his order off of that.
He needs help just writing his own name, so he rarely signs anything but legal documents. Of course, you don't need to read or write to hit a fastball. In 1915, Joe moves up another notch when he's traded to the Chicago White Sox.
Chicago was a very good team, and he helped them win a World Series in the 1917 season.
They may have been good, but they were not happy.
Charles Comiskey, who was the owner of the White Sox at the time, was known as being extremely frugal.
In 1919, the Sox again capture the American League pennant and are favored to beat the Cincinnati Reds in the World Series. But many players feel Comiskey is cheating them of their bonuses. The friction creates an opportunity for a New York gangster named Arnold Rothstein, who runs a sports betting racket.
Arnold Rothstein got to some of the players of the Chicago White Sox and gave them a little bit of money under the table to supposedly throw the series.
When the Sox lose the series 5-3, Rothstein makes a bundle. The Black Sox scandal erupts. A grand jury indicts Shoeless Joe and 7 other players for conspiracy.
Several of those teammates confessed that they were part of fixing the series and implicated Joe Jackson.
Testimony of pitcher Edward Cicotti is said to have been most incriminating evidence.
Prompted by Comiskey's lawyer, Jackson admits taking $5,000 from teammate Lefty Williams, but he denies throwing the series. Outside the courtroom, a young Sox fan supposedly confronts his hero. "Say it ain't so, Joe," he says. But was it so?
Why would a player like Shoeless Joe throw a game, a World Series game?
Well, the reality is that you and I will never know with 100% certainty the truth. Joe Jackson was virtually illiterate, so when he was confessing, did he comprehend what he was doing?
Based on the stats, it didn't look like Joe Jackson had anything to do with the plot. He batted .375, hit a home run, and had 6 RBIs.
Although a jury acquits all 8 Black Sox players, baseball commissioner Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis bans them from the game. Shoeless Joe takes his trophies home and never again sets foot on a big league diamond. He lives in relative obscurity in South Carolina until his death in 1951. Since then, few baseball stories have captured the imagination more than Shoeless Joe's.
Being here at the baseball field is the perfect place to ask you about him as a legend.
We have movies such as Field of Dreams, 8 Men Out, that continue to bring Shoeless Joe in front of new fans, new moviegoers.
And that legend is what drives Cleveland baseball collector Bill Bowen to covet the book of Frank Smith photos, which his friend showed him in 2006.
Take me back to the moment he first told you he wanted to buy the scrapbook.
We came home and said, you know, I'm going to buy this book.
The price? $15,000. The missus is not amused.
I said, absolutely not. Who would spend that kind of money for a paper scrapbook filled with old pictures?
Your husband, the baseball nut, that's who, and that's next.
But first, our Strange Inheritance quiz question. 2 of these actors played Shoeless Joe Jackson in Hollywood movies. Which one didn't? Ray Liotta, D.B. Sweeney, or Robert Redford? The answer in a moment. So which actor didn't play Shoeless Joe? The answer is Robert Redford. Liotta played him in Field of Dreams, Sweeney in 8 Men Out, but Redford's character in The Natural was only based on Shoeless Joe.
In early 2010, baseball fanatic Bill Bowen tries to convince his wife to let him buy this 100-year-old scrapbook of vintage baseball players. In it is an autographed picture of the legendary Shoeless Joe Jackson. The asking price, $15,000.
And that's when I said, no, absolutely not.
Bill buys it anyway, selling some of his other memorabilia to raise the cash.
Where did you keep it?
It was just sitting in a trunk in our bedroom, handy so he could pull it out and look at it and show it to people when they came.
And Sharon decides to stop giving her husband a hard time about it.
Really? You were that easy about it?
I was easy because life's too short, and it proved to be true.
In 2014, Bill has a heart attack and dies at the age of 67. Shortly after his death, baseball collectors begin calling his widow.
We started to get some phone calls from people. Did we still have the book? Would we consider selling it?
A family friend suggests they talk to Heritage Auctions in Dallas.
So my daughter took some pictures of the book and emailed it to Heritage, and they emailed her back in 4 minutes.
Within 4 minutes, you heard from an auction house.
Chris Ivey specializes in baseball memorabilia.
When something like this comes in, it's incredibly special.
3 days later, a Heritage representative flies up from Dallas.
He starts flipping through it and says, "You didn't tell me that this guy was in here. You didn't tell me you had this autograph."
But the real money shot is that autographed picture of Shoeless Joe. The Bowen family sends the book to the auction house. Chris Ivey believes the autographed Joe Jackson picture is one of a kind. But before it goes on the auction block, he has to make sure it's genuine.
We don't sell any autographs without third-party authentication. So obviously that's a nerve-wracking prospect.
And the authenticators have their doubts. How likely was it that it was legitimately signed by Joe Jackson?
In my head, I'm thinking, I'm sure you also have a Bigfoot / Loch Ness Monster dual-signed baseball coming behind that as well.
Here's another quiz question for you. What did pitcher Christy Mathewson call his signature screwball? An ephus, a fadeaway, or a fungo? The answer in a moment. So, what did Christy Mathewson call his screwball? The answer is B, a fadeaway, which curved in to right-handers. It helped Mathewson rack up a record 373 career wins.
It's nothing like a day at the park. Our own field of dreams.
That's right.
To determine whether Sharon Bowen's strange inheritance, this autographed picture of Shoeless Joe Jackson, is real, the auction house calls Joe Orlando, president of Professional Sports Authenticator in Orange County, California. He's also a baseball nut.
Legend has it that Shoeless Joe could throw a ball 400 feet. So what you're looking at is probably a ball that would actually sail far over that scoreboard beyond the center field fence.
That's awesome.
Joe's job is to give buyers and auction houses an informed opinion on the legitimacy of sports memorabilia.
It's our job to be skeptical about everything.
How elaborate is the process to authenticate something of this magnitude?
Well, that's where we're going to head over to our offices and really give you an in-depth look at the process itself.
It falls to PSA's Steve Grad to determine whether the Joe Jackson signed photo is legit.
Steve, thank you so much for letting me come in. I am the most excited about this authentication part.
For yet another baseball nut, it's the chance of a lifetime.
There isn't a Joe Jackson photograph that I know of that's actually signed. And they're telling me it's got great provenance, great story, but I want to see that autograph first.
Steve has reason to be skeptical, and not just because Jackson couldn't read or write. Collecting autographs from ball players didn't become a fad until well after Shoeless Joe's career. Signed photos from his era are very rare. Confirming that the photo was actually printed in 1911 is PSA's first challenge.
What about the photograph itself? Did you have any concern about the paper?
Well, we have a photo expert, Henry Yee, and Henry's really good with paper and photographs. He confirmed that, well, this was used for a short period of time, but right during that period. He knew immediately.
Okay, the picture is legit, but how about that signature?
So this is Joe Jackson's last contract. This is 1920.
Remember, nobody has seen another autographed Shoeless Joe picture. But Steve can compare the writing to various legal documents that the illiterate Jackson did sign.
Through the years, I've been able to see a handful of Joe Jackson signatures we've deemed authentic, and I'm able to look at certain tendencies Joe Jackson has. So that autograph has to talk to me. If you want to go ahead and put it in.
We put a copy of the signed photo into this contraption called a video spectral comparator.
You see things you can't see with the naked eye.
Let's see.
You can see with this. And here we go. I want to drop the magnification to 8.
It's very CSI.
And we start to look at the formations here of the letters. You could see where he labored.
He had a very hard time even writing an individual letter.
He did.
How do you distinguish the signature that we look at and the real deal?
So if we take the photo back and we take a look at the signature itself, okay? What's fascinating to me, we're talking 1911, 1920, 9 years later. Look how he comes up here to the E, okay? And we're starting to see the same
A
thing
straight
here
line
again.
from the O to the E in Joe.
1911 and 1920, you take a look, it's literally the same thing.
With what percentage are you certain you have an authentic Joe Jackson signed photograph?
100%. I had like this eureka moment, and I was like, bam, there it is. That's Joe Jackson.
Steve certifies the autographed Shoeless Joe picture and the entire 60-photo collection is real.
It's one of the coolest things I've ever handled in my entire life.
Even better news for the Bowen family. He grades the signature a 9 out of 10 in quality. He also rates the other signatures at either 9 or 10. After more than 100 years, the photos Frank Smith took at the Cleveland Knapp Spring Training are about to make their public debut.
It's also very exciting to reach out to the Bowens and let them know that we're going to be able to sell it on their behalf.
This is a biggie. 1911 Shoeless Joe Jackson signed photograph.
Yeah, live auction is always a lot of fun.
Beautiful. How about it?
$30,000.
$30,000. Now,
It was very exciting.
have you ever seen a photo like this?
That's next. What's your strange inheritance story? We'd love to hear it. Send me an email or go to our website, strangeinheritance.com.
Now back to Strange Inheritance.
Manhattan, February 21st, 2015. Sharon Bowen's family gathers for the auction of her strange inheritance, a 1911 scrapbook of signed photos of baseball greats. The crown jewel of the collection is the only known autographed photo of Shoeless Joe Jackson. But the Bowens soon learn the rest of the collection is plenty valuable too.
Lot 53, the 1911 Christy Mathewson signed photo. Have you ever seen a photo like this from Mathewson?
$30,000.
$30,000, now go 36.
The scrapbook is broken into 4 lots for auction.
36, now to go to 38.
I said to my children, Dad would have loved this.
$60,000.
And Will said to me, except Mom, Dad would never have done it because he would have kept that book as long as he was alive.
Now it's a level playing field.
My dad and I had been to so many sort of auctions like that, but never one of this magnitude.
There are a few bidders in the room, but most are online and anonymous.
The Christy Mathewson photo, which had some very spirited bidding.
$2,500 more to you, sir. They're gonna help you pay for it, I guess.
And went well beyond its initial estimate.
$77,500, once, twice, done, it's yours, $77,500. Give him a hand. Moving along, this is a biggie.
Next on the auction block, that signed photo of Shoeless Joe Jackson, the only one known to exist.
It was fun and bittersweet because it meant the story was over for us. This piece of Bill was leaving.
Probably read some press about this. Absolutely pristine condition.
It was the pride and joy of Bill Bowen's lifelong collection.
Well, let's start the bidding at
$110,000.
$110,000. Give me the 120.
And at that point, it started to dawn on me that this is a lot of money we're talking about.
120. Now to go to 130.
And I think at some point my left knee started to buckle just a little.
I was very excited for Sharon Bowen and her family as well. It speaks to her husband, Bill Bowen, that he had a great eye.
Now to go to $150,000. I need $1.50. $150,000 for the Shoeless Joe. $150,000. Anyone else? Done. $150,000.
When the auction house commission is added, the Joe Jackson picture brings in $179,000.